What if accurate beach volleyball bump setting wouldn't be as much about technique as most people want to make it to be? What's up, I'm Alex from Learn Beach Volleyball Fast, and today's time for another beach volleyball tutorial that will hopefully get you closer to the root causes to the problems that are keeping your game from reaching the next level. But before I piss too many people off by saying that bump setting technique is not important, I do think that bump setting technique is important. But the interesting thing is that you can see a lot of different bump setting techniques played on the highest level of beach volleyball. For example, sometimes you see more stiff-legged type of let's use only our arms for power type of bump sets. Sometimes you see these hybrids where you kind of use both your legs and your arms. And then you have this kind of Brazilian style where you use pretty much only your legs for power and your arms are pretty much still, at least up until contact point. Afterwards they might kind of go up. And also you have people that are not squared up, they're doing back sets and weird sets, and sometimes you see recovery sets, and these recovery sets are still more accurate than a lot of beginners and intermediate players are able to do with perfect technique. So the interesting thing is that when you have several different techniques and they all seem to work, well, can you really say that this is better than that is better than that? Or maybe there's something underlying, fundamental, something that they all have in common that is actually the key to accurate bump setting. And that's hopefully what we're going to dive into today. Okay, so in short, this lesson is going to be about three things. It's going to be about visualizing the outcome or the goal, having a deliberate contact point, a very careful contact point with the ball, and third, trusting your body that it can do number two by itself. And I'm gonna give you tips and tricks and sort of tools to make all of these happen at the same time. Okay, so let's start with the careful contact point. And just a little bit of theory first, and this is kind of funny because you're gonna understand that the ball can both not read your mind, but it can also read your mind. But let's start with the not read your mind. Purely physically, the ball does not have brains. The ball doesn't know what you want to do with it. It doesn't care if you think that you're gonna put it over there, if you simply, the contact point with the ball is not of an angle and a force that will make the ball go exactly where you want it to go. Like that's why technique, yes, technique matters, but at the exact contact point, the only thing that the ball actually cares about is what sort of force and at what angle you give it to it. So that's actually, that's a key point to understand. It doesn't matter if your body is laying down, if you're standing up, if you're recovering something, if it's one hand, two hands, whatever, it is just going to take pure force and a direction and go that way. And that takes us to the first tool of today's lesson, which is, I don't know where I heard this, but if you would think that the ball is a glass ball, that would actually mean two things. It would mean things that the ball would probably weigh more than it actually does, and it would be more fragile. So imagine that the ball is a glass ball, but it still weighs the same as a beach volleyball and has the same bounce as a beach volleyball, but it's very, very, very fragile. If you would be bump setting a ball like that is very fragile, you would want to be really careful with it. Really careful so that you don't break the ball. And that carefulness, so this is just sort of a mental trick to make this happen. That carefulness that you would have, the gentleness you would have with this glass ball is actually going to put a little bit more of your focus into being very deliberate with being very aware of the angle and what is happening with your arms when you actually touch the ball. And as long as you have this, it's almost like time slows down for a millisecond right as you're touching the ball. This is why your body can be out of balance, everything. You can be leaning backwards and just like, okay, there. And it still works, and you can still do accurate bump setting with this technique. Okay, so that was number 1 out of 3, and I'll probably just go over all of them, and then in the end we'll sort of discuss how they work together with each other. So number 2 then is clear mental visualization of where you want the ball to go. Which basically means that if you're going to be very deliberate with this glass ball, your body also needs to have a clear vision of where it wants to be deliberate with putting the glass ball. So it's actually kind of important to have a very, very clear picture of where you want the ball to go. I taught this at a class this summer, and I started with saying that I want you, to the players, to have like almost like an arrow in the air of the exact flight path of where the ball is going to go. And I told them that my arrow is blue. So it's very visual. And some of the players, they were like, but that doesn't really work for me. And then I actually thought about it myself, and I realized that it's more like I know the maximum height that the ball is going to have, and I know the ending where it's actually gonna end up. So I actually visualize from me to the maximum point to where I want the ball to go. And that has to be very clear for me. Okay, so now it's time to say that everything that I'm teaching you in this video, these 3 things, these are things that have to be experienced by yourself. You cannot learn them from this video. I can only explain like rough explanations of how they work so that you can go to the court and later experiment with them yourself, and you're gonna realize that, okay, it's like 90% the way Alex told me it is, but now I actually understand what he meant. So my explanations can be a little bit rough and might not be 100% exactly how you want them to be. But there's an important thing, because there's a disconnect between being very deliberate with your contact point and imagining it's a glass ball, but at the same time visualizing and seeing where the ball is going to go. Because when I tried this, I was thinking that if I'm very clear with where the ball is going to go, my focus in my eyes is actually going to be that spot. But when I went out and tried to bump set like that, I realized that shit, now I'm not seeing the actual ball, and I cannot be very deliberate with touching the ball if I'm super watching the visualization. At the same time I tried the other extreme, I followed the ball, I was very deliberate with what I'm doing with the ball, but now I'm actually not seeing where the ball is actually going to go. So what I actually think that the solution is I want you to go and try both of these things with your eyes, but I think the actual solution, the actual feeling I'm trying to communicate here, is sort of a vision in between watching the ball and watching the visualization. Kind of like juggling. I don't know if you have ever been juggling, but if you see this video of me, I'm actually sort of staring out into nothingness, which means that I'm sort of seeing all the balls at the same time I'm not really seeing any of the balls. And I think this is pretty much what your eyes do when you're bump setting, when you're both deliberate with touching the ball properly and visualizing where it's going to go. Alright, and the third one, trusting your body that it can do all of this without the help of you, without the help of the conscious you. This is a very deep one, and actually there's a lot of theory and science and whatnot behind this that we're not going to go into this because I want this video to be short and able to watch for new-time viewers. But in short, your body is sort of genius. Your body can do things without you telling it to do the things, and actually usually works the best without you telling it like certain instructions. You probably have a memory of sometime when you played like volleyball at your best or done a sport at your best, and when you think back to it, you're almost like, shit, that was almost magic. Like, I barely know what happened, I just know that it went really well. You were really in this like no thinking state, and you were just trusting your body to do whatever it does the best. And we really need to try to get into this state to be able to bump set accurately. So here's actually a nice explanation that I heard for this kind of visualization. So if you would think of a symphony orchestra sounds really good when all of the instruments are playing in sync and right pitch and everything. It sounds beautiful. And this is basically your body, because to bump set or do anything else, there's a lot of different muscles that have to work in synchrony. And it's really beautiful when it works. The thing with the symphony orchestra is that if one instrument out of those maybe 50 or 100 plays one tone wrong, everything sounds horrible. And that's basically exactly what happens if we are not in this trusting our body mode. If we try to tell this muscle what to do while it's trying to work together with all the other muscles needed to do the bump set, well, this little muscle might get disturbed by us sending it as another signal that just makes it a millisecond wrong. And the whole synchronization between the muscles goes wrong, and the bump set ends up going not the right way. Because really, if you think about it, a bump set is about the angles, like I talked about before. Here it will go perfect. If you mistime your arms like a few milliseconds, your arm might be here instead, and the ball goes actually at another angle, which over there might end up being several feet or meters away from the target. So it's very fine tuning, it's very deliberate, you have to be very careful when you're doing it, like the glass ball. And that's why the glass ball visualization works, because you get into this hyper focused state where you're just like right there. But the point of this is really to trust your body that it is a genius, because actually what your body is doing, it's calculating angles of the ball coming at you, it's calculating speed and angles of your arm, and it's calculating the visualization of the result you want and everything, and it's putting all of this together very quickly and deliberately and making you produce that ball result. If you would have to calculate all of that with your conscious mind, you would not stand a chance. So that's why we actually need to sort of just let our conscious mind go and just let our bodies do what it does best. So I hope that helps. As I said, you're going to have to go out on the court and experiment with these things before you will actually understand what I mean, most probably, if you haven't had similar experiences before. So glass ball thinking, be very careful with the ball. Visualize where the ball is supposed to go, at least the top point of the arch and the goal, and trust your body to be able to do that. And see if that helps with your bump setting, and especially the accuracy of it. And I will be creating videos about actual bump setting technique in the future. I just wanted to start with making this video because I actually think that this part here is the most important about learning to bump set, so that this is done before I make the technique videos. Alright, I hope this helped and that you enjoyed it. If you like this video, you should click the like button, that would help me a lot. And of course you should subscribe to this channel to get a lot more content like this, where I really try to get behind what most people are teaching. Really find the root causes to problems rather than just the surface level stuff. I also have a Facebook group that you can join if you want to connect with like-minded people that are also following this project. And of course, if there's any questions, something I missed, something you don't understand, you can always comment below and we'll have a look at that if I can answer those questions. And as I said, that trusting your body thing is a lot longer lesson than this is, so if you actually don't get it here, don't worry, we can jump into that later. But hopefully the short explanation that I gave will make sense for some people. Alright, see you later.